couple years ago, I got invited to go to my girlfriend's family reunion. And this was really exciting for me because I was planning to propose to my girlfriend, and I had not met this side of her family before, so this was a big deal. But there's a little problem, which is that her family is comprised of outside people, by which I mean people who like to spend time outside. I am an inside person. As a matter of fact, working in radio and podcasting, I spend most of my time in rooms that are designed to deny the existence of outside. That's how much I like being inside. So I said, what's on the agenda for the family reunion? And she said, hiking. And I said, shit. But I went on the reunion and I was like, I'll find a way in, I'll find a way in. And I was very relieved when I got there to discover that there was a large contingent at this family reunion of old wasps in a basement drinking martinis. And I'm very good at that. But then my girlfriend walks over with some other folks from the family and she says, we're gonna go for an HIKE. Do you wanna get in on this? And I thought to myself, Sam, you have an option here. You can stay here and do the thing you're good at, or you can go on the hike. So I said, yeah, I'd love to go on the hike. Let's hike it up. So we set off on this hike, and we walk up to the top of this mountain. And it's going pretty good so far. First, I made it to the top of the mountain. So that's a big deal for me. But then things take a little bit of a turn. All these clouds roll in, and it starts to rain, like really, really, really heavily. The hardest rain I can ever remember being in. For my girlfriend's family, no problem. They're outside people. They were wearing waterproof pants. I was wearing this. Except that I was also wearing a powder blue sport coat, because I was trying to make a good impression. Instead, I made the worst possible impression. So I don't know what to do, and one of her cousins says, oh, no problem, I brought an umbrella. So I say, great, there's only one way for me to look more ridiculous. Thank you so much. So I put up this umbrella, and we start making our way down the mountain. And at a certain point, I feel this thing that I've never felt before, and this is what it felt like. It feels like the hand of God has reached out of the sky, grabbed the top of the umbrella, lifted me into the air, and then thrown me to the ground. And this is accompanied by a sound like this. And then in my peripheral vision, I see this white light going by. And then one of my girlfriend's cousins says this thing, I will never forget this thing that she said. It was, drop the fucking umbrella! So I throw the umbrella to the ground, there's smoke coming off the top, and I realize I have just been struck by lightning. Now, when you're an inside person, something people say to you sometimes is, what are you afraid of going outside? You think you're gonna get struck by lightning? But I also have this other thought in the immediate aftermath of this. And it was a thought I had never had before, which is I look around at all these people who I felt no connection with, and I think, I have to take care of my family. And I couldn't believe that I had that thought. And thankfully, everybody was okay. And in the aftermath of this, my girlfriend and I were talking about it. And she was a PhD student in sociology. So the first thing that she did was look up on the internet the likelihood of getting struck by lightning, which is 1 in 15,300. Statistically, it is meaningless. It could not be more random. But I am a storyteller. And so my thought was, what does this incident mean for my art? the thing is, when something that sudden and painful happens, you want it to mean something, right? Like, you want it to totally reframe the way you look at the whole world. And so I started thinking about other incidents in my life that have felt that sudden and intense. And the first thing that came to mind for me is, for the podcast that Drew was very kindly mentioning, I was doing some research about my family. And I looked up in this database where you can find court records my mom's last name, because I was trying to find some information about my grandmother, who, it's a long story, turns out to have been an international jewel smuggler. That's a different story. And one search result comes up, and I think, bingo, I found it, professional journalist. But then I open up this search result, and it is not the FBI records of my jewel smuggling grandmother, as I hoped it would be. It is a court transcript from my parents' divorce proceeding. And I thought, Sam, you have the option of not reading this. There's only one outcome, and it's that it'll ruin your day. So an hour later, I had read the entire thing. And what I discovered upon reading it was that my dad's legal associate, who mysteriously came along on my college visits, was more than a legal associate. But the other thing that I realized was that my parents' divorce, for me, was the defining moment in their life. And the thing about a court proceeding is that it is exhaustive. And so as I was reading through this, it became very clear to me that my parents' divorce was just one chapter in what was actually a very long and rich partnership between the two of them. And so for the podcast, I ended up interviewing my dad about this on mic, and we talked about it. And then I put it into a podcast episode, which I thought he might have expected would happen by virtue of the presence of microphones when we were having the conversation. But when the episode came out, he sent me an email, and he said, "This is like a dagger through my heart, and I don't believe that you found that court record. It's supposed to be sealed." And I was like, I have a receipt. Like, I have it. I have the court record. But I couldn't say that to him. And I was telling some friends about this, and they said, "Well, what did you want him to say?" And I said, "Well, what I wanted him to say is, I don't agree with your characterization of what happened, but it helped me understand what it felt like for you. And that's a place that we can start to talk from." So shortly after that, I received an email from an ex-girlfriend. And this email said, "I have written a memoir. You are mentioned. Would you like to read it?" And I thought, Sam, you have the option of not reading this. And so I said to my friends, I'm not going to read it. And my friends, being smart people, said, "You should probably read it. If she sent it to you, I think you should take a look." So I did take a look, and I am not just mentioned in this memoir. I am what we call in storytelling the inciting incident of the story. And I am mentioned on a large number of pages. And the thing that was really intense about this for me was that the way that she characterized our breakup is that one night she came to my house and we had a big fight, and then the next morning she left and we never spoke again, and she never knew what happened. That's not how we broke up. The way that we broke up is that she cheated on me with somebody else, then we had a really big fight, and then I told her, "I don't want to see you anymore, we're broken up." And the way that I know that's true is because I have an email that I sent her the next morning where I recap that entire conversation. I have a receipt. And so she says, "Well, would you like to meet up and talk about the book?" And I said, "You bet I'd like to meet up and talk about the book. Guess what's going to happen? I'm going to sit down at that coffee, I'm going to slide that email across the table, and I'm going to say, 'What do you think about that? Your book is canceled. You can't publish it.'" And as I was planning to do that, I realized, oh, I'm my dad now. This is exactly the position that he was in. And so I did not do that. I went and I met with her, and I said to her what I hoped he might have said to me. I said, I don't agree with the way that you have characterized this, but reading this really helped me understand what the end of our relationship was like for you. And it was the best conversation that she and I ever had. And so, recently, I was talking about this lightning strike thing to a group of people, and when I finished telling the story, this woman came up to me, and she had this really intense look in her eyes, and she grabbed my arm, and she said, "Are you a Buddhist?" And I said, "No. What's about to happen?" And she said, "Listen to me. What happened to you is called a darshan. It's a blessing, and it means that you are a holder of light." And then she disappeared. I'm not totally convinced she was ever there. And I think that that is the lesson that I am supposed to take from this lightning strike incident, particularly because I did not end up getting engaged to that girlfriend. We broke up. But in that moment where I thought, this is my family, I realized that that is something I one day want, and that was the first time I had ever admitted that to myself. And so I have decided that while statistically getting struck by lightning means nothing, anytime I am given the option, I'm going to choose, no matter how much it hurts, to hold on to the light. Thank you.